Everything in our lives is always changing. These adjustments might take the forms we anticipate or not. Additionally, it frequently results in inevitable losses, whether it's the death of a loved one, the loss of significant items, or even being apart from familiar objects. No matter how much we prepare for it, everyone must experience losses like this one. Thus, sadness becomes an inevitable aspect of existence that no one can avoid. Similar to how flowers change with the seasons and blossom or wither, the patterns of gain and loss mold our lives. The first step to learning how to live with grief thoughtfully is acknowledging and understanding this truth. Recognize that suffering is a natural aspect of existence. We can start down the path to true self-healing when we allow reality to enter our minds. Grief acceptance, the initial step towards healing. It's normal for us to experience sadness when we lose. We also need to allow ourselves to feel that way. An essential first step toward healing is accepting your grief. Trying to repress or deny feelings of sadness in the long term can worsen our feelings. The sensation of being obstructed remains, but we are gathered into our hearts waiting for the moment when unexpected things will blow out. People who have lost a loved one are a common example, but decided to behave normally. Keep your sadness to yourself and resist the want to wallow in sadness. Years later, time went by. Hearing the deceased individual's favorite song could be the smallest trigger for this person to start crying uncontrollably. Trying to block sadness won't make it go away. However, it allowed it to build up until it was a profound wound in my heart. Understanding and being aware of your feelings can be achieved by beginning to accept your sorrow. Remaining depressed is not the essence of acceptance. However, the key is tackling it with an open mind. We will start to see how to let go and move on when we acknowledge our sentiments, using mindfulness as a healing strategy. Sadness is a strong feeling. It has the power to overpower our emotions and ideas. It causes us to get focused on what has been lost until the present is forgotten. Using mindfulness as a coping mechanism for loss does not imply putting up with or attempting to cover up your feelings of sadness. However, the key is to learn how to deal with it consciously. By engaging in mindfulness practices, we may better identify and comprehend our emotions as they come up and progressively let go of our connection to them. There are various states to cultivate mindfulness when coping with sorrow, beginning with 1. Expressing your sadness. 2. Embracing sorrow. 3. Identifying your own sadness. 4. Observing grief in the absence of the melancholy. At this stage of development, consciousness is at its peak. Every level is a state of profound self-awareness and emotional acceptance. We might see grief from a different perspective after going through each of these phases. It's not an enemy that needs to be defeated. However, it is an experience from which we can develop and learn. 1. Expressing your sadness. Being aware of our sadness is the first step toward mindfulness. Sounds like a typical experience. However, a lot of people decide to ignore or suppress their pain. They can have a lot on at work, going out, or making an effort to avoid dealing with this uncomfortable emotion. Recognizing your sadness is a crucial first step, because we won't be able to comprehend and let go of our feelings if we don't accept them. When we acknowledge that we're unhappy, as if it were a door that has been opened for us to thoroughly examine those emotions, our emotions become more visible when we don't suppress them. Furthermore, we'll start to realize that there's nothing to be afraid of in grief. However, everyone must deal with it because it is a fact of life. 2. Embracing sorrow. Once we acknowledge our sadness, the second step is to accept the sadness that comes. To be accepting in this context is not to judge or try to eliminate it. However, embrace your sense of loss and learn to live with it wholeheartedly. When we're depressed, we frequently believe that we shouldn't be depressed. It is not appropriate for you to feel depressed. Maybe we believe that we are weak if we allow grief to rule our lives. However, accepting grief fully does not mean fighting it. Avoid pushing yourself to feel well immediately. That we are making room for a natural state of relaxation when you embrace sadness. Like clouds that drift over the sky, things will eventually pass us by if we don't hold on to them. 3. Identifying your own sadness. As we allow our hearts to be open to receiving our sorrow, gaining mindfulness will enable you to say, I see myself sad. This is the next stage. Putting yourself via an external lens is what it implies. In the sorrow, it's as though we are the audience members witnessing ourselves. Just try not to let it get to you. Sadness starts to appear as a fleeting sensation when we reach this stage of consciousness development. It doesn't characterize who we are. Identifying your own sadness might aid in your quest for a deeper comprehension of your feelings. Illness is transient. Additionally, we don't have to think about it all the time. Emotions are like waves in an ocean. Sadness is simply one wave. The capacity to recognize our sadness will let us understand that we are not powerless over sadness. However, it is merely a part of the fleeting experiences of life. 4. Observing grief in the absence of melancholy. Seeing sadness without the sad person is the highest level of mindfulness development, which allows us to view melancholy as a phenomenon. Let go of the idea that we are the ones who are depressed. At this point, depression is just a normal part of life, similar to leaves or rain falling. The process of birth and death is natural. A self that is depressed does not exist. Being sad but not being the sad person, it is a profound comprehension that each emotion that crosses our consciousness is fleeting. Suffering comes from clinging to those emotions. But when that attachment can be released, true inner serenity will be attained. Our consciousness has reached its full potential at this point. Not only do we comprehend loss, however, you can continue to live with it without experiencing any further distress. Experiencing sadness is an inherent aspect of life, and you're free to let it go without fear or anxiety. It takes time to learn how to use mindfulness to deal with loss. From acknowledging and accepting your own sadness, imagine that you are depressed. And lastly, observing melancholy in the absence of its subject. We gain a deeper understanding of our emotions through this method, in addition to improving our own understanding of them. But it also brings us to a genuine release from the pain that sadness brings. We can witness the truth of emotions as they naturally come and pass by when we practice mindfulness. Our hearts are burned by sadness, much like fire. The fire will extinguish itself if we don't put more fuel on it. However, sadness will only intensify if we allow it to take over our thoughts. Being conscious of our surroundings helps us put out the fire of sadness without resisting it. However, allow the melancholy to progressively fade. Metta, or compassion, a way to heal the mind. Metta is the practice of giving unconditional love and goodwill to others. Cultivating kindness is not just about showing love to others, but it's also about giving love to yourself. This is a crucial component of mental healing while we are grieving and experiencing loss. Being kind can alter how we view hardship. It enables us to find purpose and serenity in adversity. Being mindful isn't the only strategy for grieving well. However, practicing loving kindness is also a very effective means of soul healing. When we experience grief and sadness, developing compassion for both yourself and other people can significantly lessen that suffering. Self-compassion, loving and forgiving oneself when you're sad. While experiencing loss, guilt is one thing that frequently comes up, the conviction that we were capable of more, or ought we to stop this from occurring. This kind of self-criticism might make you feel worse and make your unhappiness last longer. To be compassionate to oneself, you must first forgive yourself and acknowledge that everyone errs sometimes and that they have no control over what happens in life. We shall be able to release ourselves from guilt if we acknowledge this reality and allow yourself to heal yourself. Taking care of oneself during periods of loss, such as allowing yourself time to rest, is another way to be kinder to yourself. Allowing yourself to experience sadness without hurrying through it, and understandingly caring for your body and mind. This form of therapy reduces anxiety in addition to depressing feelings, but it also develops the inner strength that enables us to accept suffering with dignity. Treat others with kindness. Spread love to make happiness. If we treat ourselves with kindness, another technique to aid in mental healing while we are experiencing sadness is to show compassion to others. We can feel alone and wallow in our pain when we are sad. However, reaching out in kindness and compassion to others might lessen that loneliness. When we treat ourselves with kindness when we are experiencing sadness, another technique to assist in mental healing is to show kindness to others. Sometimes being sad makes us feel isolated and that we're sinking into our misery. However, reaching out to people with kindness and love helps lessen that loneliness. By showing kindness to others, we build connections that connect us to mankind and society. This will contribute to our sense of purpose and worth in life, even if we are experiencing loss. Helping to others, a technique to turn sadness into positive energy. Putting deeper loving kindness practices into practice, it's about converting your pain into motivation to support those who might be going through similar hardships. We may become more sensitive to the pain of others when we experience loss. We shall be more able to deal with other people's suffering when we have a better understanding of our own. Providing support to others when we grieve, it all comes down to transforming the depressing energy into uplifting energy. Being kind to others can give one the impression that life still has a purpose and gives us a sense of worth. As a case study, consider those who have lost close ones. When people start working to benefit the community, they frequently find peace of mind. Or starting a company with innovative and socially conscious objectives. For example, a parent who perishes in a car crash. You may start a road safety campaign through volunteer work. Or those who lost their spouse due to severe illnesses may decide to help other families dealing with the same issue. These initiatives benefit more than just other people. However, it also gives us hope that we can put our losses into productive, creative energy. In the darkest of times, kindness is shining brightly. When we're feeling down and despairing, being kind is like a beacon guiding us out of the shadows of grief. Whether it's practicing self or other kindness, by engaging in compassionate practices, we can break free from the never-ending cycle of misery and pain. Realizing the importance of wishing others and oneself love and well-being helps us understand that life has a purpose even while feeling lost. And finally, we can find true healing by following the path of compassion practice. It provides us with a chance to appreciate the significance of pain in life and make happiness and mental tranquility your goal by diverting that sorrow. Inspirational stories. Those moments when we experience loss and grief. Hearing about the experiences of those who have previously faced adversity, it might serve as motivation for us to keep going on. These stories show more than just that pain is a common occurrence in life. However, it also enables us to realize that we are capable of overcoming suffering. If we decide to tackle life with kindness and mindfulness, we have courage in our hearts. A widow's journey to transform her sorrow to inspire creativity. An elderly woman who had been married for almost 50 years tells her experience of losing her spouse. She discovers that she is lonely and empty in her existence. However, she decided to use her sorrow as fuel to spread goodwill around the world rather than letting it consume her. Her spouse had inspired and advised her to serve others, so she followed his lead. Richie began by providing aid to those in need, including the elderly, the homeless, and orphans. These gifts not only enabled her to achieve inner calm, but they also gradually lessened her depression, until at last she went back to leading a contented life. Even though my hubby is no longer at my side, she felt that life still had a purpose when she turned her sorrow into positive energy. Assisting others has emerged as a fresh way to address inner emptiness. Helping stray cats, finding hope in the little things. Another inspirational story. It is about a 50-year-old woman who has experienced a significant loss. When her only kid and spouse passed away at roughly the same time, she felt as though her life had no purpose because of the intense melancholy, and she started to consider taking her own life. But one day, while she was making her way to the location where she had planned to commit suicide, she came upon a hungry and frail-looking stray cat. She discovered that assisting animals made her feel good, and helped to lessen some of her sadness when she assisted that cat. She thought twice after seeing that first smile in months and chose to live on to do good. She then committed to carry out at least one good deed each day. For example, assisting stray animals, providing problem-solving counseling, or even providing food and clothing to the less fortunate. She was able to continuously lessen her sorrow and sadness thanks to these measures, until she realized that there is still purpose and significance in life, even if the most crucial part is lost. A young lung cancer patient making miracles with compassion. The life of a young lady who was diagnosed with lung cancer is another heartwarming story. Following the cancer's return, which was more aggressive than before, she was told that there might not be much left in her period. She made the desperate decision to use her last days to give back to society by offering to assist ill hospitalized youngsters. Assisting children, she feels content and happy in life because of those things, but more. However, it also had unanticipated effects on her. Her cancer unexpectedly disappeared after she volunteered for a while. Not only did the doctors and her find this treatment surprising, but so did she. However, it also persuaded her that her actions of kindness and compassion toward the kids served as the chemo booster that kept her alive. She still volunteers now, and she uses her experience to inspire people who are coping with life-threatening illnesses. She feels that her newfound life comes from doing nice deeds and supporting others. It's also something that everybody can do, no matter how challenging conditions may be. Recap: using inspiration to overcome loss. These people's stories reveal that suffering from loss and sadness doesn't have to last a lifetime. Then living a life of kindness, compassion, and mindfulness can help turn suffering into an inspiration to create goodness in the world. Now, when we start to search for significance in loss and make something worthwhile out of our pain, we'll discover that contented and tranquil lives are still possible, even the most depressing day. Depression medicine, healing from sorrow and loss. Sometimes we experience difficult to avoid loss and grief in life. We can count on the fact that it's a depression pill that doesn't involve medication or physical therapy. So it is about finding inner power by treating ourselves and others with kindness and mindfulness. Things to help you get through difficult times. It's not about trying to escape pain. It's about realizing that life will always include sadness. Taking a thoughtful approach and deciding to transform your negativity into positive energy. We don't need to suffer in silence. We can uncover our hidden strengths by lending a helping hand to others when we feel helpless. Healing begins with allowing ourselves to be loved and treated kindly by people around us. Regardless of whether you have lost a loved one, misplaced hopes, or encountering setbacks in life are chances for us to develop. So easing grief is not something that happens in the far future. You already possess it. It's present in every decision you make to make yourself happy again. It's found in all of your acts of goodwill toward others, and it exists every time you fearlessly embrace truth. If you're on a journey to heal and rebuild after loss, subscribe to the Awakened Way channel for more guidance and mindful strategies. We offer tools, insights, and inspiration to help you find peace, resilience, and inner strength. Let us walk this path together. Hit the subscribe button and join our community today.